Hello. Try again, shall I? Hello. Welcome back to the garden. Last time you saw me here, I was in the process of sorting out the doors on the polytunnel. So let's have a quick look at that. You can see they're as simple as can be, really. So this is actually the old door from the old polytunnel cover. You can see the zips on it there. It's weighted down when it's closed with a bit of the old bunk bed, just the same as one of these bits, and it's held up with a bit of baling twine. The other end of the polytunnel, exactly the same setup, and that one's just held in place at the bottom there with a breeze block at the moment, and that seems to be enough. What I'm doing at the moment is coming in here early-ish in the morning, so about 9 o'clock, 10 o'clock, something like that, opening up one door, and then that seems to maintain the temperature just about right until twilight when I close that front door and shut it down for the night. At some point I might need to open both the doors and let a breeze all the way through it to stop it getting too hot, but at the moment everything in there seems to be doing just right. Now some people are asking why I didn't put any heat tape on the frame of the polytunnel before I covered it in plastic, and to be honest I'd never heard of heat tape, and so I think it's a fairly recent innovation. My experience of polytunnels is at both ends of the spectrum. I've worked in commercial polytunnels, and I've also owned this one for a few years, but nothing in between. And when I worked at a farm that had polytunnels, that was probably about 15 years ago, and possibly heat tape didn't exist back then, or I didn't take any notice of the structure of the polytunnel I was working in. Anyway, it was a new one on me, and of course we've done such a good job of putting the cover on that, yeah, I'm not going to squeeze any tape in there now. What I have done though is got hold of some of this. This is the frost protection fleece. It's dead cheap. It arrived in the post a couple of days ago. So this is intended for putting over plants to keep the frost off them. I don't know how well that's going to show up. But it's a simple fleece. I think I can cut this into strips, and certain areas I'll be able to tease it in between the plastic and the frame. I particularly want to do that where there's bolt heads. And all the bolt heads are rounded off, but even so I think they'll benefit from bit of extra protection by putting this cloth in there. Other than that, it's like, well, no, it's not even a cock-up really. Other than that, I'm quite happy with it. It's yeah, I think it went together really nicely. While we're talking about the polytunnel then, I might as well show you what's growing in there. There are a few things actually poking through now. What I'll show you in a minute is some seeds that I put in pots and some seed trays, and they're all full of just this stuff which I happen to have, which is multi-purpose compost. I've been using I've just been dumping it in here in this big box, and then using the polytunnel as a potting shed to pot up those seeds. Obviously early in the morning or late at night for that, because it's a tad warm in here at the moment. Let me show you what's on the go right now then. I'm coming in here like every morning and just giving them a little sprinkle of water, and that seems to do the job. Here then we've got courgettes. With the courgettes what I've been doing is putting 2 seeds in each pot, and then I'll pick out the strongest one. Well, I'll leave the strongest one, pick out the weakest one and chuck it away. I think 3 courgette plants will be absolutely ample for 3 of us. And over here we've got butternut squash. Doesn't appear to be anything going on yet, but I suspect they're sprouting under there. And in this one we've got pumpkins, and again I've put 2 seeds in each pot, and I'll pick out the weakest one and discard it. So that lot, the pumpkins, the butternut squash and the courgettes, that's all going to go in the bed with the fresh poo. Next up we've got broad beans, nothing much happening there at the moment. A bit more activity here. So these are brassicas, obviously, purple sprouting broccoli and kale, and they germinate really quickly, and yeah, lots going on there. What I'll do with these is wait until they're about this high, and then I'll break up the mass, prick out the strongest looking ones and pot them up into pots this sort of size, and then when they're bursting out of those sort of size pots, then I plant them out in the garden. Over here, French beans, nothing yet. Leeks, nothing yet. Tomatoes, again, nothing going on. Got there, chili peppers, nothing visible. Aubergine, we got a couple coming through. Calabrese, so that's the big headed broccoli that you normally see in supermarkets. The autumn crop basically. That's doing nicely. Over here this is supposed to be tomatoes. These are blatantly not tomatoes. These are some kind of squash or possibly courgette seeds that have got slipped into the mix there. Capsicums and moneymaker tomatoes, nothing visible there. This is my other exciting garden news, a big pile of poo. This came about because my neighbour who runs the farm next door happened to ring me up and say that a parcel of mine had gone astray and ended up in his farmyard. We got chatting about the garden here, and he happened to mention he was clearing out one of the cow sheds at that moment, and if I got there quick I could get a load of this stuff. So I fired up the dumper, which took some doing because it hasn't run for months, and I set off next door, and he kindly loaded me up with, well, it was just 2 scoops from a tractor with a massive front loader. There we go. This is from the back of a cow shed, like I say, and it's been compacted after months of the cows treading on it. It's also full of straw, so it's got lots of organic matter in there. It's not just poo. In short, this is going to be ideal for going on bed number 4, which is where we're going to grow the courgettes, the squash and pumpkins. Well, they're all types of squash really. They're like I said before, they're the plants that will tolerate material that's this rich. That means that I can use the last of my horse poo, which you saw in episode 1 I think it was. I can put that on the other beds because that's probably 3 or 4 years old and it's turned into like rich soil. So that's going to be ideal as a top dressing to go on some of the other beds. And like I say, this is going to go in number 4, and we'll have in time, once those seeds are sprouted out and they're bursting out of the pots, they'll go straight into this and they'll just go romping along. So yes, a very kind donation. And we did of course maintain social distancing during the exchange of poo, which is quite easy to do when I use on a dumper and the others in a tractor. Well, it's so warm I've come to stand in the shade for a little bit. There's not much to report in the rest of the main part of the garden. Just waiting for it to take off really. Becky and Milo are on their way over this afternoon though, and we're going to take all the weeds out of bed number 1 where the potatoes are going to go, and hopefully if we've got time we'll actually plant the potatoes in there. So they've been chitting away in the living room since I filmed episode 1, which is about 3 weeks ago, something like that, and they're just about ready for planting now, so hopefully we can do that. And once that's in, once those potatoes are sorted and planted, I think that's the end of the actual hard work in the garden, and it should be fairly plain sailing after that, and just a case of pottering about, and it'll become easy peasy.
There's loads more. You rock it.
This is rocket.
I know. Don't put so much of my laughter in either. People think I'm happy.
Get the gardening hat on. On a hat.
try one. That one. That's the one you wanted. I think they're going to be too big for my head.
Well, it would have been fine if I'd covered it like the one that I did cover.
Good job, and then you've got to shake it, shake it, shake it. Swedes, eh? Got a special Swede tool.
Weed lifter.
Feels like I'm going on my back. Feels really weird.
Odd. Almost done.
This stuff is repair tape for silage bales, which seemed to me to be a good fit for a polytunnel. Just a reminder then, we've got second earlies and main crop. I'm just going to put the bags on there to remind me. I'm going to split this bed in half, which is here. Now I'm going to cram the potatoes in probably a bit closer than you'd normally have in a normal garden, because I found with raised beds you can ram them in a bit more because they don't shade each other so much. What I'm trying to do with the potatoes is to make quite a dense canopy once they start sprouting and all the foliage comes out. If I can get a nice dense canopy there, it will shade out any weeds that are coming through from the soil, and then I don't have to weed it. So I'm going to make some furrows. I normally just make holes and drop potatoes in, but this time I'm going to make some trenches because the soil's nice and loose. I think that's going to be the easiest way to do it. And so they're going to be spaced something like that. So 3 plants in a row, and then about 8 inches apart. So I'm just dividing the bed in the middle, and then dividing each section again. I should have enough to plant out what I want and have about 4 potatoes left over, so I can be a bit selective. Some of them are a bit duff, like that one there has got a big hole in it which doesn't look too good. That's as far as they've chitted. I was expecting the shoots to be a bit longer than that by this point, but there we go. So from what I recall, the important thing with potatoes is to put them into fairly warm ground. So it's been a really sunny spring so far, so it will be absolutely fine. Sometimes if I was putting in earlies, for instance, I'd have put them in and then mulched over them with some straw or something like that in case of frost, because if a potato plant comes up and the little seedling gets frost on it, it's a goner. The other thing I remember is chits up. No one needs to go chits up. So the little shoots will become the foliage. I should probably measure the first few so I can get the hang of it. I think I need an 8-inch gap. Yeah, I quite like this method actually. So this is the first time I've done it, making these sort of furrows in the ground. And I think I'll probably do it again. That's the second earlies. Now main crop. That's it then, all the taters are planted, ready for the chickens to come and dig them up again. We're about to go to bed anyway. Once they've gone in, I'll come and tidy up after them. I think looking at it as I was holding it over there, they're all buried, but there's not really enough depth in the bed there. I'm going to top dress it with the really old horse poo that's broken down into soil. I think I'll put that on there. Yeah, otherwise we're going to... Once potato plants start to grow, they rise up anyway, and you generally have to earth them up, because if you get sunlight on the actual potatoes, they go green and they're no good then. I just thought I'd share some footage of this crabapple tree, which is in full blossom at the moment. It looks absolutely amazing. Well, that's it for now. I'll see you next time. Stay safe, everybody. Cheers.